Hello sir, good morning. My name is Ankit Sharma and I am from collegedunia.com. Welcome to you on our interview series which is Thoughts on Education, where we conduct the interviews with dignitaries of various colleges like faculties, HODs, deans and directors. I would like to request you to give a brief introduction about yourself, then we will proceed the interview.
Okay, my name is Ramnath Narayanaswamy and I've been in education almost perhaps all my life. I come from a family of teachers. My father was a very distinguished professor of English, both the language and the literature, for the better part of his life. And my mother is a teacher or was a teacher of philosophy and sociology. So I come from a family of teachers with a very liberal background. And although in the early part of my life I didn't want to go into education, life had a different plan for me, and without my knowing it or without necessarily being aware of it, it took me into education. I did most of my the early part of my education in Pune and my higher studies in Paris. And I came back and I joined as a Sovietologist in the Center for East European Economics at the Gokhale Institute of Economics, Politics and Economics in Pune. And then later moved to the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore, where I spent the better part of 30 years teaching in the area of management. I joined Flame University in 2022, mid-2022, and I've been very happy here ever since.
Thank you sir for the introduction. So shall we start the interview?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so my first question is, you have held key positions at education institutes throughout your professional career. What keeps you connected with the education sector and how has your experience been so far with the institute?
Are you talking about Flame University in particular?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. In general, I have been passionate about education all my life. I like being with young people because it reminds me so much of myself and the dilemmas and choices I had to make as a young adult in my own life. I went through my own periods of confusion, clarity, groping, searching for a personal vision for myself, something that would endure throughout my life. And it was a fascinating journey. It had its ups and downs and eventually led me to my North Star. So when I see young adults struggling to meet themselves, it brings out the best in me. I'm overwhelmed by a sense of empathy and would like to reach out and help them meet themselves. So that is what really motivates me as an educator. The question is often asked, what is education? Well, education is about developing a way of viewing the world. And it changes over time. We elevate it, refine it over time. What you think of the world around you when you're 16 is not the same when you're 26 or 36 or 46 or 56. You keep refining it, you keep changing it. And that's what's so fascinating about being in the area of knowledge creation and knowledge dissemination, which is what we educators are. So, as an educator, I feel that my job is very akin to that of a gardener. हम एक माली की तरह हैं. We go to the bagicha and we go to the garden and we plant a few seeds in the soil. And our job is to plant a few seeds in the heart of the young adult. and hope that encourage the learner to all seeds need a little bit of energy, a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of love, a little bit of shade, a little bit of fertilizer for it to grow into a sapling. From a sapling, if you water it and if you look after it regularly and give it a lot of caring, it grows into a tree. Years later, it starts giving flowers. And still more years later, a couple of years later, the flowers start emitting a fragrance. And when you merge with the rest of the universe. So I think a teacher's job is to plant those seeds. And we plant it in the hope that the learner will take ownership and responsibility for its growth, for its consolidation, and in the hope that it brings out the best in him or her. So in education, there is an element of inspiration. There is an element of outer growth and inner growth and balancing the two. So there's something called inner management and outer management, inner education and outer education, inner engineering and outer engineering. And I think in Flame University, we strive to create that balance. It's not an easy balance to create, combining knowledge of the outer world with knowledge of the inner world. The inner world refers to your own sense of vision, your own personal vision, the way you articulate your values, the way you relate to internal and external context, and the way you understand the environment that you live in, the context that you live in. Whereas knowledge of the outer world is really about understanding forms of matter and motion. To combine this, in a sense, to combine the head and the heart, grow in the realm of knowledge, but also in inner knowledge, which is a bit spiritual, which is a bit philosophical, which involves an inner journey. Both are journeys. And to stimulate these journeys is really the business of teaching. So teaching is not confined only to knowledge. It is also, you must help the learner make the transition from knowledge to wisdom. So there is an old saying which says that information is not knowledge. Knowledge is not wisdom. And wisdom is not wisdom if it doesn't enhance your capacity to love, to be inclusive, to be compassionate, to express solidarity with those who are less fortunate than you. So, in Flame, we attempt this, to balance both outer growth and inner growth, outer learning, inner learning, outer management, inner management. And as I said, it's not an easy task. It's a challenging task, but it's an exhilarating opportunity, because when you help somebody who is young, somebody who is groping, somebody who is searching, when you help them meet themselves, when you help them to see light at the end of the tunnel, I think there's no greater satisfaction in the world than this.
Thank you, sir. So my next question is, being the faculty of Flame University, what are your roles and responsibilities towards the students?
Well, I came here with some very specific objectives. One was, of course, to do some teaching in the area of my passion, as well as my that's also in a sense my vocation. I've been teaching, involved in the area of leadership and leadership development for the past well over 30 years. So the three courses that I teach in the three different programs in the university have much to do with leadership. Leadership and personal growth, leadership and team building, then embedding leadership excellence, which combines both intellectual inputs combined with experience, with an experiential component. I try to be innovative in what I do, and one of the reasons that I like working in a university like Flame is that it gives me the freedom to innovate. I am encouraged to innovate. So I design process exercises that tap into, which are customized, uniquely customized to the individual's needs, and make that an integral part of the evaluation of my courses. And last year I taught 3 different courses in the area of leadership and received a very heartening response from my students. So that's something I do as far as teaching is concerned. But I also have a strong research agenda because I'm involved in writing 3 different books. The first is a bit of my lifetime's work. And I've been kind of deeply involved in understanding India's civilizational traditions, our culture, our heritage. And I feel very passionately that we as educators in India have, in a sense, failed to contemporize the profound insights contained in our civilizational traditions by making them speak a modern idiom that can address the concerns of young adults today. India today has, we have the majority of our population are young adults and are likely to be so for the next 20-25 years. We urgently need to address their needs, help them meet their challenges, help them, provide them with a roadmap and the tools with which they can formulate this roadmap. So fundamentally, I think it consists of 4 different ingredients. One is vision, both a personal vision, that kind of a North Star, which helps them find हर व्यक्ति के जिंदगी में एक चीज होती है, उसका नाम पुकार है. It's a very nice word in Hindi, which means every human being has a calling, and it is the duty of educators to help young learners discover their calling. And I think this is, so I call this process vision, and it involves, there's a personal aspect, there's an element of personal vision, and when you join an institution or a company, there's something called company vision, and help young people understand the necessity of making both these visions cohere. When I join a company, the company must have values that cohere with mine, because it's one of the greatest difficulties in life is to work for an institution which believes in values that are very different from yours. So you need to see that both of them, there is some synergy between visions and values. The next is values, helping them articulate them. The third is context, which is, as I've explained, to be able to understand the environment, both the internal and the external aspects of the environment we deal with. So all these 4 ingredients are covered in my courses. I also take lessons I try to isolate management insights from the Mahabharata, from the Ramayana, from the Bhagavad Gita, and put them into management language in a way that young people can understand, relate to, and implement in their lives.
Thank you, sir. So my next question is, how do you try to bring in a practical approach towards subjects and make it industry oriented?
Well, management is a discipline that is very much grounded on the you have to provide solutions. It is very firmly grounded in providing solutions. Business, for example, is a getting things done institution. So unless you are very practical and very grounded and are able to, your insights should be related to the real world. So we try to do that with the teaching of, the whole business of case studies and then employing them in our education, in our courses, is precisely that, because the insights from case studies tend to be apocryphal, and therefore they bring value to the classroom. It's also a challenge to deal with young adults who don't have a retrospective. For example, if you are in management, at least that has been my experience in management education, it's easier to deal with a middle manager or a senior manager or a CEO than it is to deal with a young adult. Because when you deal with somebody senior who has 10, 20 years of experience behind it, he or she is able to connect those insights to their own experience. They have a retrospective which helps them connect that. But in the case of young adults, you have to simulate it because they have no real experience of what you're talking about. And to that extent, it's a greater challenge dealing with that. So this challenge kind of stimulates me to be creative in the way you address it. And it throws out a world of possibility. And in Flame, we are given the freedom to innovate, to be creative, and so that we employ different methods to tap the creativity of our students and bring that to the fore, which is a process that I find exciting and exhilarating.
Thank you, sir. So my next question is, what would you like people to know about your institute they may not know?
Oh, no, thank you for asking me that question. I think it's a wonderful question. The founder of our university, very few people know who he is. And this is something that I find fascinating and very distinctive about us. He happens to be Mr. Nimit Shah, who was, his company was they were the underwriters of the first public issue of Infosys. And they started this university mainly as a means of giving back to society. So it is a university that's founded on the principles of Jain philosophy, something that appealed to me very strongly when I first heard of it. And Jain philosophy, as you know, is very strong on principles of ahimsa, of ensuring that we don't harm other living creatures. We respect every other living human being, create a sense of solidarity, inclusiveness. And these are firmly practiced on our campus. Living beings of all kinds, including animals, are respected. We don't interfere with anybody's lives. And we allow each other space to each other to coexist and to live in harmony. We are strictly vegetarian. Our diet is vegetarian. The food that we serve in our dining halls are vegetarian. And we try to uphold these values wherever we go, which is something distinctive about us. I have seen very few institutions that practice that. So in a sense, we walk our talk in that respect. There is no order of compulsion, but we would like that process to be voluntary. And it works very well. So if you want to if you want to eat non-vegetarian food or something, you are encouraged to do that outside the campus, but not inside the campus. And we don't believe in strict boundaries, unalterable boundaries. The university doesn't have a fence for that reason. So I find these aspects very, very, there's a certain charm about it and something very appealing in the way, in its approach to the outer world. And I said, let me give it a try. And then when I came here about a year and a half ago, I love the way it was implemented. My own being resonates with those values. And therefore, I find that a very, very pleasant experience. That is definitely something very unique about this university.
Thank you, sir. So my next question is, what do you see as the greatest strengths of Flame University?
As I said, it's practice of Jain philosophy. I mean, even the owners, we don't know really who they are unless we make an effort to find out. And I did make an attempt to find out. You know, in our scriptures, Indian scriptures, we say, it is said that the greatest dharma is to feed the poor. And the founders have nurtured an entire community here. Food is provided to everybody, and the same food is eaten by whether it is the Vice Chancellor who is the beneficiary of that cuisine, or the faculty member, or a staff member, or anybody else. They are served the same food. We sit on the same table, the same chairs, and we do that every other day. I think that's an extraordinary thing. I've never seen that anywhere else. It touches me deeply and profoundly. And again, as I said, I resonate with those values. I'm able to relate to them. And I think they are worthy of emulation. The second is, it's lovely to be with young people. There's so much, we see so much of ourselves in them. And therefore it brings out the need for empathy, for compassion, for solidarity. All of us face problems and challenges in life. So to be able to reach out to young adults, help them sort their issues out, sort their challenges out, is, I think, a noble activity, an activity that can take up much of your time, and where you can spend it in productive endeavors. A number of our students come from a wide variety of backgrounds, and about a number of them, I think a majority of them, are young ladies. They are very passionate about what they want to learn, very dedicated. It's a pleasure teaching them. And if our students believe that they have some value to gain from you, they will come after you. They're curious, and at their age, we were curious too. We were hungry to learn. And so it's a great experience being with them. They energize you, they animate you, and it's altogether a very, very refreshing experience.
Thank you so much, sir. So my next question is, what are some of the biggest challenges you see both for higher education in general and for Flame University specifically?
As I said, speaking as an Indian and speaking for the country as a whole, we have the largest number of young adults in the world today. A large part of our population is very young. And we urgently need to meet the demands of this section of because they are the majority. They are the future. And the future of our children is in their hands. And therefore, we need to address this with the greatest of care, and address it in the best possible way that we can. So one of the ways that I think that this can be done is to encourage them, as I said, in these 4 areas of personal development, which means vision, values, clarity, context. And encourage innovation and creativity in courses dealing with these subjects, especially self-development, especially spirituality, especially creativity, especially leadership development. What is it? How can I be a master of myself? How can I gain inner mastery to enable me to advance in the world outside? So I think Flame is a wonderful destination for somebody who is striving for both inner development as well as outer transformation. And I think we are sitting on an opportunity of enormous magnitude. We are the first university in the liberal arts in this country. And we have a tradition in our university. We don't like to be too loud or advertise ourselves in a very spectacular or a grand way. We prefer a quiet approach, in the sense of quiet accomplishment, to allow our deeds and our actions to speak for themselves. which is a good way of establishing your reputation in the marketplace, whether it be national or whether it be global. So, to answer your question specifically, is first to meet the aspirations of the younger sections of our population. How do we energize them? How do we animate them? And as I said, to give courses that give a pronounced emphasis on character building over tools and techniques. So I think that's a good title of a good book. Character, attitude and character over tools and techniques. So I think their focus should be on character building. Focus should be on building the right attitude, which will help them in their later lives to cope with those challenges. Challenges come to everybody, and it's the way we meet them that determines our future. So if they're going to have a successful future, how do we enable them? How do we equip them to meet those challenges? I think so. This, speaking for the country as a whole, I would see this as a major challenge, and it's a challenge that we can eminently meet especially in institutions such as Flame, which are set up in the liberal arts, which encourage creativity, encourage innovation, encourage courses in all the domains that I have mentioned.
Yes, sir. So my last question is, any suggestion you would like to give to the current youth and the aspiring students?
You see, there was a great mythologist. His name was Joseph Campbell. He was an American. And if you look up the web and go to the Joseph Campbell Foundation, you will see a lot of material on him. I first read him, one of the best books I have read on King Vikramaditya, on the stories of King Vikramaditya, which actually triggered my whole journey into leadership, my whole foray into leadership more than 25 years ago, was inspired by Joseph Campbell. He was certainly my guru in the early 90s. He was a mythologist, an essayist, a writer of many books, many of them of rare distinction, a teacher, a scholar. He was many things. And towards the end of his life, he shot into fame. A number of the films that you see today, Pirates of the Caribbean and so on, these were all inspired by Joseph Campbell's a book called his notion of the stages of the hero's journey. There were 12 stages that he spoke about. And what did he do all his life? Well, to put the matter simply, he studied fairy tales. He studied the fairy tales of the Hans brothers Grimm in Germany, the Nordic tales, the tales of the Red Indians, the Panchatantra, the tales of Vikramaditya, the Jataka tales. He was a scholar in the true sense, in the classical mold, and did a lot of pioneering, path-breaking work. And towards the end of his life, he was asked by somebody in an interview, Mr. Campbell, you've studied the myths and legends of many regions across the world. What do the world of the fairy tales have to teach us adults? What can we learn from them? And what has it taught you? He gave a very beautiful answer to this. And he said, yes, it is true that I have studied, I'm not quoting him exactly, but I'm paraphrasing him, that yes, it is true that I have studied the fairy tales of many, many countries. And what I have learned from all this is that a human being is born into this world to find his own bliss, to discover his own bliss. So what Mr. Campbell meant by that beautiful phrase, extraordinary phrase, is that a person is born ordinary to discover what is extraordinary in him. So we are born as ordinary mortals But our job in this world is to discover the extraordinary in us. He was profoundly influenced by Vedanta, especially Advaita Vedanta, by the three terms Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat, of course, means being. Chit is consciousness, and Ananda is, of course, bliss. And he was so inspired by this state of absolute being, consciousness and bliss, that he adapted it in a very creative way to his own journey of self-exploration. And the way he saw fairy tales, it influenced him profoundly. So when I read it for the first time, I was deeply impressed with it. It stuck with me ever since. So to answer your question, what is it that, how can we help young adults in India? How can we help as educators? I think the answer is provided by Campbell in that beautiful phrase that he used, to help people, to help young adults discover their own bliss, to discover their passions, to discover their visions, to help them with the tools, equip them with the tools to discover their aspirations so that they can learn to fly.
Thank you so much, sir. We believe this would definitely help to students for their career and to choose their dream college like Flame University. Thank you so much for your valuable thoughts on education and your time and attention.
Thank you.